Hi everyone, my name is Phaedra. This is Phaedra Gardeness and I am standing out in our flower field right now. What I would like to do today is show you how to pick some of these cut flowers. What we have out here right now, we're towards the end of summer and there's some specific ways to cut these flowers for the best vase life. We will start with dahlias. They probably have the most specific cutting conditions, and I've been experimenting with this for a few years now, and it may already be up or it may not be, but I have a video coming, or it's already up. I'll put the link in the description about how to cut your dahlias before they're fully opened. A lot of people believe that you have to wait until a dahlia has fully opened, and that's just not the case. I can actually open them from a bud, but if you go to that video, it'll talk you through that. The best type of dahlia for cut flowers is ball dahlias, and there are flower farms that will only grow ball style dahlias, and the reason is you can actually cut it at this stage. They will open, so they're opening, the petals stay pretty nice on the back, and they eventually kind of open out into an entire ball, and as those back petals start to brown, they get hidden in behind the ball. This is another one. This is Hot Shot. It's a red one, same deal. So you can even cut it, you know, this is when most people would cut it this far open, and it still has a lot of vase life in it. Like I said, I've been cutting at this stage. They'll open up. You'll have to go to that video though. I haven't deadheaded for a little bit, but let's go through, pick some dahlias, and I'll show you how we do it. First things first with dahlias, cut into boiling water. It helps with the uptake of moisture for, you know, whatever you put them in later on. It also clears out their cell walls because the hot water is clearing that out. For some reason, dahlias like boiling water. There's a few flowers that if you put them in boiling water, it really helps rehydrate them. Roses is another one. So let's go through, let's pick some and we'll pop them in our boiling water. If the cut, this isn't the first cut of the plant, but your first cuts you actually want to do really deep and low on the plant. So if this was my first cut, I'd cut way down the bottom, and it leaves me with this really long stem. And if I don't want such a long stem, so I will strip the leaves off. If you don't need such a long stem in the bucket, you can just give it another cut. But the main thing is to just cut deep on the plants. It sends a message to the plant to send up nice long stems. If you cut tall, like if I was to cut this up here, that cut point, the message is now to the plant to send up a shoot from there. And we want nice long stems for all cut flowers. The longer the stems, well, not always the better, but we do want nice long stems. So that is where to cut on the plant. Cut deep and low. As you're going through and you see other, I just haven't. It's been really hot, so the flowers have just gone crazy. I go through and deadhead. I'll just sort of snip off heads that are fading. We will get this first prize as long as it's not dropping its petals. I don't need quite as long of a stem of that. I will then take the lower leaves off and give myself a nice section of stem that's long. Sometimes the dahlia will look like it's nice, but it's actually a bit heat stressed and it's dropping its petals. So I will just deadhead them. You don't want to be taking any dahlias in that have petals dropping. That one's actually dropping petals. I hold the bunches upside down as I'm picking, because then when I'm going in to hold, I'm not messing up the heads. They're not banging up against the plants. And sort of once I've got a handful, I come and pop them in the bucket. And they're going into those boiling water buckets. You can see me tapping on the stems with the secateurs. That's just how I make sure they're not dropping petals. It's really hot at the moment in Australia, where I am in Australia. So I'm just double checking, because otherwise I'll pick a whole heap of dahlias, take them into the studio, and then I can see that they're dropping their petals. So I leave a fair amount of leaves up around the flower heads. It saves me having to add extra foliage into a bouquet. The foliage is already there. It's attached to the dahlia stem, and I haven't found it's made a big difference with the longevity of those flower heads. I also sometimes will cut a branch of dahlia foliage and use it just as foliage. I've found it really, really nice, hardy, long-lasting foliage. Just make sure everything is definitely down in the water. The next flower is Zinnias. And I just need to put a disclaimer out there. You would want to be doing this in the coolest part of the day. So early morning, late afternoon, and preferably after it's been watered. So I'm out here early in the morning, even though it looks really sunny and it is getting hot. It's just the time of year for us. So I'm out here early morning and we watered last night, so everything's really well hydrated. So that's very important with all the flowers. When picking zinnias, you want to do a wiggle test. So a wiggle test is just shaking the stem heads like this. So as you can see, this one holds really stable when it's wiggled. This one's flopping around a lot, so I wouldn't pick this head yet. It's got high potential, it's going to wilt in a vase. That one's a bit loose, that one's nice and sturdy. That one you'd think should be a bit sturdier than that. I would leave it. And this one's nice and strong, nice and strong. So do your wiggle test. You can gently bang it with your secateurs. You're not really banging it. The ones that aren't, so the ones that are ready, they'll have resistance. The ones that aren't ready, you'll push on it and the top will wiggle. See that? So that's how you can do it without having to need 3 hands. And then when you pick your zinnias, you want to cut down where, just above a leaf node where the leaves are. So on this stem, you can see that there is a new branch sort of coming out of here. You can see up here they are too, but it's going to be too short. So I would cut down here above these leaves, if you can see that. And then more stems are going to come up out of here, and then you're just stripping. I mean, unfortunately, you have to just sacrifice those leaves, those stems that we're going to come from, because you obviously need your stem. It's nice and sturdy. If we look down at stem, you can see down here, right at the bottom, there's the leaves, and then the new stem coming up. So you just want to cut above the leaves. If I was to cut down here, we may not get anything. So make sure you're at least above that bottom leaf node, and then strip off. I leave either the top row or the top 2 on each stem. We do have some much longer ones here, and they pass the wiggle test. So I'm just coming right down again. And just be careful when you're stripping zinnias, because they've got the fragile stem. You don't want to hold on to it too tight, like, and pinch it too tight, because you can crush the stem. Let's see what else we got. Too wiggly. This one's fine. This is another benefit of the grass pathways. I can just strip straight into them and it mulches down. I've just got this tiny little section of clean limes. I didn't have the best crop outcome with this one. I am just going to deadhead this one. So if you're deadheading, you're just going down to where the stem is between the split stems. Cut it off and get rid of it. The next is Amaranth. Amaranth is beautiful. It has a really structural presence in a bouquet. I'm finding the darker ones don't stand out as much. They are there in the bouquet, but they're not standing out as much as something lighter like the hot biscuit. If you pick them young, they are quite floppy. The bigger ones do have a tendency to hold upright a little bit more, but they all are going to eventually flop in a vase, unless you've got them pretty tightly pushed down amongst the flowers so the tops just poke up amongst the flowers. And picking these is really easy. You can pick them at any length. You can see I've just kind of cut them off wherever I want them. If you're doing no dig, which we can't in this bed yet because we've got too many weeds in it, you can cut right down low, and then that's your bed prep ready for the next thing. So you can harvest right down low, which let me find one that I haven't harvested yet. So you could harvest right down low and then you leave the roots in the ground to decompose. And you've got this massive long stem, which you might really want, but if you don't, you just, let me just rest it here. So if you don't want such a long stem, you can just trim it off where you want it, and then you just leave the stems and then pick them up later. I will strip the leaves down just so there's a third of the leaves at the top. They are very, very hardy. They will dry almost exactly the same as how they look fresh. If you hang them upside down to dry, obviously they're going to keep their spike look. If you dry them upright, they're going to bend over and drape. So that is probably another thing with amaranth. If you're growing it to dry, think about how you might be wanting to use it later on and dry it in that position so that you get the shape that you want to be able to use later on. So if you're planning on putting it in bouquets and you want it to drape over the edge, you want to have it somewhere where it's going to drape into that sort of look. So that's amaranth. Just condition it in water. It's just very, very hardy as a plant growing in the field. Cutting it, conditioning it, using it, it'll even just dry off in a vase that's got water in it. Something else about amaranth is the pest damage is generally made to the leaves, so you can see those damaged leaves. Just make sure you have a quick look around what you've picked and pull off those damaged leaves. Sometimes they can be like easily missed. This one's particularly chewed up, so you just want to get rid of those messed up leaves. Another cut flower that has a little trick to it is marigolds. Many people don't love the pungent smell of a marigold, but there is a way to fix that. When we're harvesting marigolds, we pretty much just cut them wherever we want. So we're just looking for the head that we want, and we will go down and cut. The trick with it is you're not just taking off the lower leaves and the stems that you don't want. You're actually cutting out everything you don't want and removing all of the leaves. The leaves are the part of the plant that smell the worst. In saying that, we don't mind the smell of it. We actually like it. And my husband being Mexican, it reminds him of Mexico. So we actually really like the smell. Something you can do though with these leaves, the scent and the chemicals in marigolds deter pests. You can strip these leaves into a bucket of water and make up your own pest spray with it. So that's the little trick with marigolds. Feverfew is the next one. So with Feverfew, a head like this has been damaged by the rain. So what you want to do is just cut that out. So you go as deep as you can, snip it out. That's now compost, but this plant is going to send up more heads like these. A head at this stage I usually won't pick. I'm looking for more flowers that have opened, something more like this. The trick with the Feverfew is you just want to cut low, as low as you can get. This is a slightly older patch, and as you can see, the stems are much longer. And this is just what happens as the plant gets older. It's just sending up taller branches, but that's why you really want to cut them low in here. You can see this was an old plant. We cut it right back and it's regrown. You want to cut them down low so that they then send long stems up. Otherwise, if you're cutting here, they're then going to start branching from up here. They have a very good vase life. We are sort of in a transition period on the farm at the moment. Lots of plants are finishing off and many are starting, but I'll just quickly talk you through a couple more flowers. So sea holly, we've picked most of it. It's coming in for its second flush now. This hasn't quite developed. I mean, you could pick it. It's sturdy, it'll hold. But if you wait a bit longer, it's going to develop that beautiful blue colour. And then you just cut low. And that sort of preps the plant for the next flush. You can see this is a very old row, but you can still see some Sweet William. And Sweet William's the same as the other flowers. This is too short, but the first flush is long. You go in nice and deep and cut, and then it's sending up these little ones, which could be okay for posy jars. Tansy's the same. Just cut it deep. It'll keep coming up. Something else I've got at the moment, which I'm not really loving, but I'll show it to you, is the Scabiosa, the pincushion. It is a very tricky, it's a fiddly plant to cut, but you're basically just wanting to cut it low. This is the bud before the flower has developed. The little petals, they're starting to come out. And when they come out, they burst open like this. So I try and cut them when they're about this stage. They don't hold very long in a vase, they drop. And then if you leave them on the plant, they then turn into this. But as you can see, on this head, I didn't cut it at all. It's got a mix of the old seed heads and the new flower heads. So if you're wanting to get it, I feel like it's got a short window to cut. You kind of want to cut it and get the plant back low and let it send up its next flush. I haven't found that one to be very good at cutting as it's developing, not like Dahlias. So cutting stems that are ready to go and letting the rest of the stems develop and then just cutting them. Oh, our only other one is, and we don't have any ready, they're sort of growing, is sunflowers. Very similar to the Amaranth. You basically can cut it at any length you want. The sunflowers we grow, they're all single stem, they're not branching. So once we've made a cut on it, that's it, the plant's finished. So if you are doing no dig and you're leaving the sunflower stems in the ground, which I'll show you how that looks, you do the same thing as with the Amaranth. These aren't ready yet, so I won't cut it, but you would come down, you can come down, cut it really low and cut really low and then leave that stem in the ground to just to rot out and add some organic matter to your bed. Especially if you're cutting at the end of the season, you can then just let that bed sit. You can put some mulch and leaves and things over it and leave it sitting over winter. Those stems will just rot out into the ground and add organic matter. I have planted out some crops that's in here and I've left those sunflower stems. I'll show you how that looks. That's if we can still see it. Oh, we can. So there's one there just right here. I didn't cut that quite as low to the ground. Here, you can just see they're browning off. They're quite hard to see. And if you forward think a little bit and have planted pretty neat rows with the sunflowers, so you've got your rows, you can, when you cut those down, plant the next crop in between those rows so you don't have those thick stems in the way and then they just break down. Well, it's still early here, but I am sweating like a pig. I'll show you one more flower and ignore how bad the bed looks. We're just letting it die off and we're pulling it out. But it's Status. It's another one you want to cut nice and low to the ground and it'll send up some more shoots. Here it is. So if you leave the old stems on, they'll just go brown, but new stems will keep coming up. And Status, you want to cut it when the little flowers have opened up like this. I'll see if I can find a newer one. I don't have any where they're closed, but you can tell the difference. When they're closed, they don't look as fluffy and full. So you do want to cut it at this stage. And Status is another one, like Amaranth. It will dry just the way it's presented like this. You don't have to hang this upside down or anything though. It'll hold itself. So another really good one to use fresh and dried. When I say cut these flowers deep, I mean push, let me see if I can show you. I mean push the secateurs or the snips right down into the plant. So you're finding your stem, you're almost running the secateur. So you're finding the stem, you're almost wanting to run the secateur right down, push in and snip. to get it as close to the ground, but you're also getting yourself the longest stem, because that didn't look very long, but once you've pushed down into that plant, it is quite long. And if you're being really careful and you're just putting your snips around the edge and just running down into the plant, push hard and snip, you shouldn't end up with any other stems in the way, snipping them off. Every now and again it happens, but not enough for me to worry about it. Okay everyone, I can't do the heat out here anymore. It is very humid. You can see the sweat dripping off my face and it's a bit gross. See you next time. Bye.